The first lie slipped out of my mouth faster than I could even think. "I'm dating her," I said with a smirk, like it was no big deal, but the look on his face, that quick flicker of hurt he tried to cover with laughter, was all I needed to confirm the thing I had feared and hoped for at the same time. Josh wasn't supposed to care. He was my best friend, my roommate, the guy who had been there through every 2 a.m. pizza run, every broken heart, every dumb hangover. But when his smile faltered, even for that fraction of a second, it was like watching the universe give me permission to gamble with everything I had. The truth was cruel. I wasn't dating anyone. I had simply asked a coworker, Emma, to play along. She was kind enough to help, amused by the ridiculous plan I'd spun out during a late-night rant about how oblivious Josh was. And maybe I was pathetic for it. Maybe I was selfish. But I was tired of waiting for him to notice me, tired of burying every glance, every slip of affection, every heartbeat that echoed louder when he sat too close on the couch. America was supposed to be this land of freedom, of possibilities, of loving whoever you wanted. At least that's what we told ourselves. But in the small corners of New York where family expectations still ruled and old prejudices lingered, I knew better. Josh knew better too. That's why he had never looked at me that way, or at least he never let himself. So here I was, a grown man in my 20s, pretending to be straight, parading a fake girlfriend around, all in the desperate hope that it would finally break through his wall. It was twisted, ironic, and maybe even cruel. But if it worked, if it made him realize, then maybe the lie would be worth it. The first time Emma came over to the apartment, she played her role beautifully. She laughed at my jokes a little too hard, touched my arm like she belonged there, and even leaned her head on my shoulder during movie night. I didn't miss the way Josh's jaw tightened, the way his beer stayed untouched in his hand longer than usual. He kept his voice light, his comments casual, but I knew him too well. Beneath his grin, he was unraveling. And God, a part of me hated myself for enjoying it. When Emma left that night, I leaned against the kitchen counter, waiting. Josh was rinsing out his glass, his back to me. His shoulders were tense, his movements sharper than they needed to be. "You two seem pretty serious," he said finally, his tone clipped. I smirked, pushing the knife in deeper. "Yeah, maybe. She's great, you know? Easy to talk to. Fun." He gave a curt nod, but his knuckles whitened around the glass. He didn't meet my eyes. And in that silence, between the running faucet and my racing heartbeat, I realized I had started something I couldn't easily control. The plan was simple. Fake the relationship until Josh cracked. Until he said something, anything, that proved he felt what I felt. But nothing about Josh had ever been simple. He was the kind of guy who hid his emotions under layers of sarcasm and loyalty, who carried everyone else's weight on his back without ever admitting his own. I knew this about him. I knew it too well. Weeks passed, and Emma played along with increasing flair. We had inside jokes, casual hugs, the occasional staged photo at work events. My coworkers thought it was real. Even my manager once teased me about being whipped. I laughed it off, but every time, my chest tightened because the only person whose opinion mattered was Josh's. And he was slipping further and further away. First, it was little things. He stayed late at the library instead of coming home for dinner. He declined our usual Friday night drinks with too much work. He started wearing headphones more often, disappearing into music instead of conversation. The apartment, once filled with easy banter and late-night laughter, began to feel cold, like we were strangers sharing a lease. I should have stopped. I should have confessed that it was all a charade before I lost him completely. But my fear was stronger than my guilt. Because what if I told him the truth and he didn't feel the same? What if I ruined everything? Our friendship, our home, our years of trust, just because I couldn't keep my heart in check. So I doubled down. The breaking point came one rainy Thursday evening. Emma and I had just gotten back from dinner, laughing about something ridiculous a coworker had said. She gave me a quick hug at the door, one of those casual, practiced gestures that meant nothing to her but everything to the role she was playing. And of course, that was the moment Josh walked in. His eyes darted from her arms around me to my guilty face, and something in him snapped. "Wow," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Could you two maybe not do that in the hallway? Or should I start paying extra rent for the third wheel experience?" Emma froze, awkward, glancing at me for direction. I forced a laugh, brushing it off. "Don't mind him, he's just cranky." But Josh's glare was sharp enough to cut glass. He didn't say another word, just walked past us, slammed his bedroom door, and locked it. Emma left soon after, whispering an apology I didn't deserve, and I stood in the middle of the apartment, drenched in guilt, listening to the muffled music thumping through Josh's door. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing the horrible truth. I might win his attention, but at the cost of losing him completely. I told myself it was just one fight, that he'd get over it, that the silence would fade the way it always did. But silence has a way of growing roots. The next morning, Josh barely looked at me. He moved around the kitchen like a ghost, making coffee, buttering toast, all without a word. Usually, he'd tease me about oversleeping or about the way my hair looked like a bird's nest. But now, nothing. Just the scrape of a knife on bread and the slam of the refrigerator door. It was unbearable. I tried to laugh it off. "Dude, you're acting like I killed your dog or something. You mad?" He glanced at me, just once, and I swear the look in his eyes gutted me. It wasn't anger. It was disappointment. A raw, quiet kind of disappointment that hurt worse than yelling ever could. "You wouldn't get it," he muttered, grabbing his backpack. "Don't wait up for me tonight." And then he was gone. Emma noticed it too. We were sitting in the office break room, sipping coffee, when she leaned across the table with that knowing look of hers. "So, your roommate." Things seemed tense. I groaned, rubbing my face. "That obvious?" She raised a brow. "Well, considering he basically glared daggers at me the other night, yeah. Look, I agreed to help you with this ridiculous scheme because you swore it would push him towards some kind of realization. But honestly, it looks like it's just pushing him away." Her words stung because they were true. I slumped back in my chair. "I just thought if he saw me with someone else, maybe it would make him realize what he feels. Or at least what I feel." Emma softened. "Or maybe it's making him believe he doesn't stand a chance. You ever think about that?" The thought lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I found myself standing outside Josh's room, listening to the faint hum of his music through the door. My hand hovered, unsure if I should knock. Cowardice won. I walked away, sat on the couch, and scrolled through my phone like a pathetic teenager waiting for a sign. The sign came in the form of a text message. "From Emma, he's hurting. You need to talk to him, not play games." I stared at the screen for a long time. She was right, but the words I wanted to say, "I love you. I've loved you for years. I can't stand watching you slip away," felt like too much to risk. Instead, I typed back, "Tomorrow. I'll tell him tomorrow." Tomorrow turned into Friday, and Friday turned into a week. By then, Josh and I were like two strangers cohabiting. We exchanged the bare minimum of words. "Pass the salt. Rent's due. You done with the shower?" Every syllable clipped, safe, rehearsed. But underneath it all, I caught glimpses. The way his eyes lingered when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his laugh still slipped out at some stupid meme I showed him, only to vanish the second he realized. He was fighting it, I knew. Fighting me, fighting himself. And I was running out of time. The breaking point came on a Saturday. Emma and I had gone out for coffee. Nothing serious, just another piece of the act. We walked back toward my apartment, chatting about work, when suddenly Josh appeared at the corner. He was with a couple of guys from his soccer league, laughing, shoulders relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. Our eyes met across the street. I froze. Emma, ever the actress, slipped her arm through mine with a bright smile. And just like that, Josh's laughter died. He crossed the street, muttering something to his friends before walking past us. No hello, no glance at Emma, just one cold, sharp look at me that said everything. Emma's hand tightened on my arm. You need to fix this. Now. That evening, I found him in the living room, sitting on the couch with his laptop. The glow from the screen lit his face, but his expression was unreadable. Josh, I said softly. He didn't look up. What? I sat across from him, my hands shaking. Can we talk? He closed the laptop with a snap. Finally, his eyes met mine, and there was no hiding the hurt anymore. Talk about what? Your perfect new relationship? How happy you are. Congratulations, man. Really. I'm thrilled for you. The sarcasm cut deeper than any blade. Josh, it's not. Not what? He snapped, standing. Not serious? Not real? Then what the hell is it? Huh? Because from where I'm standing, it looks real enough. You've got her hanging all over you, smiling like you're the luckiest guy in the world. And maybe you are. I just don't get why you need to rub it in my face. My heart pounded in my ears. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. It's not real, I blurted. None of it. Emma and I were not dating. His brows knit together. What are you talking about? I took a breath, every nerve in my body screaming. I asked her to pretend. I needed you to, I needed you to see something, to feel something. The silence between us was deafening. Finally, Josh laughed. A hollow, bitter laugh. You've got to be kidding me. You dragged some poor girl into your little mind game just to what, test me? See if I'd get jealous. I flinched. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. Then what did you mean? He demanded, his voice cracking. Because all I see is you making a fool out of me. Making a fool out of us. The words I'd buried for years clawed their way to the surface. Because I love you, I said, my voice breaking. I've loved you for so damn long I don't even remember what it's like not to, and I couldn't stand another day wondering if you might feel the same. So yeah, I messed up. I lied. But I only did it because I'm terrified of losing you. The room fell silent. Josh stared at me, his chest rising and falling, his fists clenched at his sides. For a moment, I thought he might yell or laugh or walk out the door and never come back. Instead, he whispered, "You're an idiot." I swallowed hard. I know. Then he took a shaky step closer. Because I've been in love with you this whole damn time too. And I thought I was the only one. My knees nearly buckled. The tension that had built between us for weeks, months, years, finally snapped. He reached for me and I didn't hesitate. Our lips met in a desperate, messy kiss that tasted of salt and relief. His hands fisted in my shirt like he was afraid I'd disappear, and I clung to him just as fiercely. For the first time in forever, there were no lies, no pretending, just us. But love, I would soon learn, is never that simple. Because the world outside our apartment wasn't ready for us, and neither were we. The kiss should have fixed everything. It should have been the end of years of waiting, the breaking of every wall we had built between us. But the reality was different. Because once the rush faded, once our lips parted and the adrenaline subsided, we were left staring at each other with the weight of what had just happened pressing down on us. Josh was the first to step back. His breath was ragged, his hands trembling as he shoved them into his pockets. His eyes, though, were wild fear, hope, confusion, all tangled together. "This doesn't change anything," he muttered. My chest tightened. "How can you say that? It changes everything." He shook his head like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. "You don't get it. You think just because we finally admitted it, it's all going to be fine? You know what happens if this gets out? My family, your family, our friends. You really think they'll just clap and say congratulations?" The words stung not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Growing up in America didn't mean freedom for everyone. Not when you came from small towns, conservative parents, communities where masculinity was still chained to tradition. Josh's family was church every Sunday, community barbecues, and whispered gossip about anyone who didn't fit the mold. Mine wasn't much different. But I was tired of hiding. "Maybe they won't," I said softly. "But I don't care anymore. Care about you. About us." He looked away, jaw tight. "I can't lose them." The distance between us stretched like a chasm. For days, the apartment was a battlefield of contradictions. We stole touches in the dark, quiet kisses when no one could see. But in daylight, it was as if nothing had changed. Josh buried himself in work and soccer practice, avoiding conversations that mattered. I pretended not to notice, even as it tore me apart. Emma called one evening, her voice sharp but kind. "So, did you finally tell him the truth?" "Yeah," I said, pacing the kitchen. "And it worked. But it also didn't." "What do you mean?" I sank into a chair, staring at the darkened living room. "He admitted he loves me, but he's terrified. He doesn't want anyone to know. He doesn't even want to talk about it. It's like we're living two separate lives. One when it's just us, and another when the world's watching." There was a pause, then Emma sighed. "You need to decide if you can live like that, because secrets have a way of eating people alive." I knew she was right, but the thought of losing him again was unbearable. The first real test came at Josh's soccer game. I'd gone before, always sitting on the bleachers, cheering like any loyal roommate would. But this time was different. When he scored the winning goal, the crowd roared. His teammates swarmed him, clapping his back, shouting his name. He looked up into the stands, searching, and for a split second, our eyes met. The pride in me surged so strong it nearly knocked me over. I wanted to run down there, to grab him and kiss him in front of everyone, to shout to the world that he was mine. But all I could do was clap, like everyone else, and swallow the ache in my throat. After the game, he found me by the fence. His smile was wide, but his voice was low. "Thanks for coming. Wouldn't miss it," I said, trying to keep my tone light. But then one of his teammates jogged over, grinning. "Yo, Josh, who's this?" "Your brother." Josh stiffened. He glanced at me, then back at his teammate. Just my roommate." The word hit me harder than I expected. Roommate. I forced a smile, shaking the guy's hand, but inside I was unraveling. Because no matter how much we confessed behind closed doors, in public I was still nothing more than a roommate. That night, the silence between us was suffocating. Finally, I couldn't take it. "Roommate," I demanded, standing in the middle of the living room. Josh froze by the fridge, guilt flashing across his face. What was I supposed to say? "The truth," I snapped. "That I'm more than that. That I matter to you." His voice rose, raw and sharp. "You do matter to me. But you don't get it. My dad was in the stands tonight. My entire family could have been watching. Do you know what they'd do if they found out?" I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "So what? You'd rather live a lie forever? Pretend I'm just your roommate until we're old and gray." He slammed the fridge door shut, eyes blazing. "Maybe I would. Because at least then I wouldn't lose everything else in the process." The words were a punch to the gut. "Then what am I, Josh?" I whispered. "Am I just your secret?" He didn't answer. And that silence was worse than anything he could have said. The days that followed were hell. We barely spoke, barely looked at each other. I spent hours at work just to avoid being home. He threw himself into soccer and late-night runs. When we crossed paths, it was awkward small talk, a pale imitation of what we'd once had. I started to wonder if maybe I'd made a mistake, if maybe love wasn't enough to fight the world we lived in. Then came the phone call. It was a Sunday afternoon when Josh's mom called the apartment phone, asking if he was home. I handed him the receiver, and I couldn't help overhearing. Her voice was warm but insistent. "Your father and I have been worried. We heard rumors, Josh, about you and your roommate. Tell me it isn't true." I froze, my blood running cold. Josh's eyes flicked to me, wide with panic. He turned his back, lowering his voice. "It's not true, Mom. Don't listen to that." My stomach dropped. Not true. The words replayed in my head like a broken record. When he hung up, the room was thick with silence. I stared at him, waiting, hoping for him to say something, to explain. But he just muttered, "I had to," and walked away. And in that moment, I realized Emma had been right all along. Secrets eat people alive. The question was, would this one eat us alive too? I couldn't stop replaying it. Not true. Two simple words spoken into a phone, but they were sharp enough to slice me in half. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Josh snored softly across the hall, blissfully unaware that my chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. The cruel irony was that I had orchestrated this whole thing, this lie with Emma, this tangled web of fake dating, because I wanted him to admit what he felt. And he had. But now that the truth was out between us, he couldn't hold it in front of anyone else. He denied me, denied us, and all I could think was, what if that's all I'll ever be? His secret, his shame. The next morning I didn't wait for him. Normally we'd share a rushed breakfast, him with black coffee, me stealing his toast while he pretended to be annoyed. But I left early, escaping into the city like maybe I could outrun the ache in my chest. I ended up at Central Park, sitting on a bench while joggers and dog walkers passed by. The air smelled like damp leaves, the kind of crisp autumn morning that usually made me feel alive. But all I felt was heavy. Emma called. I almost didn't pick up, but she'd been my only anchor in this whole mess. "You sound like hell," she said the moment I answered. "Thanks," I muttered. "Did something happen?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean besides my boyfriend denying I exist to his mom?" There was a pause on the line, then her voice softened. "Oh, honey." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "He said it wasn't true, that we weren't, to keep the peace, to protect his perfect family from scandal." Emma sighed. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this. He's scared, terrified, but fear doesn't excuse hurting you. You need to ask yourself if you can live with being hidden forever." The answer bubbled up before I could stop it. I can't. It was the first time I'd admitted it out loud. That evening, when I walked into the apartment, Josh was sitting at the kitchen table with a beer in his hand. He looked up, his eyes bloodshot, like he hadn't slept either. "Hey," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I went straight to my room, dropped my bag, then came back out, standing across from him. The silence was deafening. Finally, I said, "We need to talk." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, we do." I sat across from him, my hands shaking against the table. "I heard you. On the phone with your mom." His jaw tightened. "It wasn't what it sounded like." "Really?" "Because it sounded a lot like you throwing me under the bus." His voice cracked. "What was I supposed to do? Just tell her the truth? That I'm in love with my roommate? You don't know what she'd say. What my dad would do." My throat burned. "You think I don't get it?" My parents wouldn't throw me a damn parade either. But I wouldn't deny you. Not for them. Not for anyone. The pain in his eyes nearly broke me, but I couldn't stop now. You can't have it both ways, Josh. You can't tell me you love me at night and then act like I'm nothing during the day. I'm not your secret. I refuse to be. He looked down at his beer, silent, his shoulders trembling. When he finally spoke, his voice was a whisper. I'm scared. I reached across the table, covering his hand with mine. So am I. But I'd rather be scared together than safe apart. For a moment I thought he'd break, that he'd finally choose me, but instead he pulled his hand away. I need time, he said. And just like that, the chasm between us widened. The days that followed were torture. We lived in the same apartment but felt miles apart. Our routines carried on, dishes, laundry, work, but the warmth was gone. Every glance was a battlefield, every word a landmine. Then came the night of the storm. Rain hammered against the windows as thunder shook the city. I was curled on the couch, pretending to read, when Josh came out of his room. He looked restless, pacing like a caged animal. Finally, he stopped, staring at me. I can't do this, he blurted. My heart lurched. Do what? This us, the hiding, the fighting, the way you look at me like I'm some coward. His voice cracked, raw and jagged. Maybe I am a coward. Maybe I'll never be the guy who can stand up to his family. And if that's true, then you deserve better. Someone who isn't afraid. The words hit like bullets. I stood, fists clenched. Don't you dare tell me what I deserve. You don't get to decide that. He stepped closer, rain-soaked hair plastered to his forehead, eyes blazing with pain. Then what do you want from me? I swallowed hard. I want you to choose me, not in the dark, not in whispers. I want you to choose me in the daylight, even if it costs you everything. The thunder roared, rattling the windows, but the silence between us was louder. And then he whispered, I can't. Felt like the floor gave out beneath me. I grabbed my jacket, storming past him, out the door, into the rain. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't breathe in that apartment anymore. Behind me, I thought I heard him call my name, but I didn't look back. I ended up on a deserted street, rain soaking me to the bone, my chest heaving with every breath. The city lights blurred through tears and water, and for the first time in years, I felt utterly alone. My phone buzzed. Emma. Where are you? She asked, panic in her voice. I choked back a sob. Lost. She didn't hesitate. Stay where you are. I'm coming. And as I stood there under the flickering street lamp, shivering, heartbroken, I realized that love wasn't just about confessions and kisses. It was about courage. And maybe, just maybe, Josh didn't have enough of it yet. But the question that haunted me was this. How long could I keep waiting for him to find it? The storm outside had finally quieted, but inside our small apartment, the silence was unbearable. The words I had left hanging between us still lingered in the air, too heavy to be ignored, too raw to be taken back. Ethan stood by the window, his back to me, his fists clenched at his sides. The dim glow of the city lights brushed over his profile, and for the first time, I saw the vulnerability he had spent years hiding. You think this is easy for me? His voice broke, trembling but fierce. You think I haven't wanted to tell you 1,000 times? That every smile, every stupid joke we shared didn't make me want to just... He cut himself off, dragging a hand through his hair, his shoulders shaking. God, Daniel, I can't keep pretending anymore. My throat tightened, my chest ached, and all the walls I had built came crashing down. Then don't, I whispered, barely able to breathe. He turned then, slowly, as if afraid I might disappear if he moved too fast. His eyes glistened, his face a storm of fear, longing, and exhaustion. You don't understand. I do? I cut in, stepping closer, my heart hammering against my ribs. I've understood for a long time. Maybe I was too much of a coward to admit it. But Ethan, I never dated her because I wanted to. I did it because I thought maybe, just maybe, it would finally make you see me. For a moment, he just stared at me, frozen. His lips parted like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Then, with a broken sound, he closed the distance between us. His hands found my face, trembling, desperate. The kiss wasn't soft, wasn't tentative. It was everything we had held back for years, crashing out of us like a dam finally breaking. It was messy, and wet with tears, and perfect. I clutched him like I'd drown without him, every inch of me burning with the certainty that this us was all I had ever wanted. When we finally pulled apart, gasping, his forehead pressed to mine, he whispered, "I hated every second of watching you with her. It tore me apart. I hated myself for doing it," I admitted. "But if it brought us here, maybe it was worth it." He gave a breathless laugh, shaking his head. "You're an idiot." "So are you," I smiled through the tears. "Guess that makes us perfect for each other." The world outside kept moving, uncaring, but in that moment, everything else fell away. There was no weight of judgment, no shadow of fear, just us, finally unshackled. Weeks later, things weren't magically easier. Whispers at work, questions from family, the quiet disapproval from people who thought they had the right to define love for us. It all came. But this time, I wasn't facing it alone. Ethan's hand in mine was steady, unshakable. He defended me when I faltered. I held him when the world felt too cruel, and together we found a rhythm, fragile but real. One evening, as we sat on the fire escape watching the city lights flicker like stars fallen to earth, he leaned against me, his voice soft. "Do you regret it? The pretending, the lies, all of it." I thought of the pain, the loneliness, the ache of unspoken truths. Then I looked at him, warm and solid beside me, his thumb tracing circles against my palm. "Not anymore," I said, "because it led me to you." He smiled then, the kind of smile that wasn't just on his lips but in his eyes, his whole being. "Then I guess it was always worth it." We kissed again, not with desperation this time, but with quiet certainty, as if sealing a promise. A promise that no matter how loud the world screamed, we would keep choosing each other. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was pretending anymore. I was home. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.